Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is our 1 p.m. session with Amanda Gascoigne. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you're having a fantastic day. You know the drill by this stage. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping and we're going to go through a few different things that you need to be aware of. If this is your first session, welcome. I hope you're having a good time. If it's your fourth or fifth session by now, hey, so good to have you back. So this is the Growth Club. You're going to come and learn about workflow, AI, compliance, productivity, and a whole bunch of other good things right now during the session. Super hard hitting, all super practical. The quick little housekeeping before we get started. All sessions are being recorded and transcribed by the wonderful team at Vinyl. That'll all be available to you post the session recording taking place. CPD points are available for all sessions. That is thanks to AccrediWise. And you get your chance to win $500 worth of gift cards. So share your best moments online. You just got to find the firm on LinkedIn, tag us there, use the Growth Club hashtag, and then go in the draw. And we're going to be drawing them out as the day goes on. So don't know, have you been posting yet? I've seen a few of you posting, but I need to see a few more, and then we will go from there. Huge thank you to our partners. We can't do this without you, particularly Intuit QuickBooks, for being our major partner for the first ever Growth Club. Like I said, I hope you're having a good day, but this is all possible because of the brands and supporters that we have. Now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our next guest. This is Amanda Gascoigne, who runs Amanda Gascoigne Consulting. And today it's actually not about tech. It's not about the software and so forth. This is about you and trying to help you prevent burning out. So the balanced firm, building a profitable solo or micro practice without burning out. We're joined by the wonderful Amanda Gascoigne. Please give her all your attention and praise. You can jump in the chat, make sure you can hear and see everything okay. Amanda, thank you for being here. I'm going to hand it over to you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you here at the end of the session. Let's take it away.
Thanks very much for having me, Trent, and hi everyone. As Trent said, I'm going to be talking about how to build a profitable, balanced practice without burning out, a very important topic, especially at this time of the year as we're rounding everything out with tax returns and getting ready for the new financial year. So what we're going to talk about today is defining your version of success. We're going to talk about how to set some smart boundaries, how to implement some core systems for success, how to price with confidence, and how to avoid burnout while growing sustainably. So let me tell you a little bit about my journey and why I'm so passionate about this topic. I started my own firm from scratch at 28. I built a thriving practice and had quite a few staff. We had offices while raising a family. I bought on a partner in 2015 and then sold out completely in 2017 to focus on coaching small and solo accounting practice owners. I know firsthand the juggle of what it's like, dealing with everything. And I am and always have been the breadwinner of our family. And I think that's really important to talk about because I see so many practice owners, absolutely great at what they do, but they often forget about themselves and their own family and their own family's wealth. And I think that's really important that we can be really successful helping and sharing our knowledge, but also making a really decent living. I also wanted to mention that all of the things I'll be talking about today are my own personal views and also what I've developed and, how I've actually, ran my practice over that 18-year period and the things that I'm talking about with my clients. So all of my own personal experiences. So first of all, I want you to think about, what does success look like to you? Now, there is no one size fits all definition of this. I know, when I was in practice, and particularly in around that early 2000s, everyone was striving to get that $1 million practice. Now, mind you, $1 million back then is now worth $1.5 million, but we're still talking about this $1 million practice. It's not the be all and end all. It can be. I work with a lot of clients that definitely want that growth, but I also work with a lot of clients that want more balance. And I think there is a real lot to be had about really thinking about Do you want that growth, or do you want that smaller boutique type firm? And everyone is different. It also depends on your age and the stage of your practice journey. And it's okay for these things to change. You know, what you think you wanted may actually be in fact different to what you want now. So it's okay for that to be evolving. So a few things that I've just taken in relation to the types of questions that I ask clients when I look to really uncover what their version of success looks like is, you know, those income and remuneration goals. And I hear people all the time say to me, look, money is not my main driver. And look, that is okay, but I think that we have to be more commercial in a lot of the things we do. And I talk about being empathetic and being kind and caring with our clients, but also, like I said a little bit earlier, is looking after yourself and your own, your own personal wealth and remuneration. So if it's been a little while between times that you've looked to see, you know, what you would be worth on the open market, I'd really encourage you to have a look at that. And, you know, we're in a really great place to be looking at what other people are earning as well. And, you know, how does that measure up to what we're earning in the amount of time that we're investing in our businesses, and also the qualifications and expertise that we have. So really thinking about what that remuneration point for yourself is, and that's a really starting point for everything, particularly as you're looking at preparing your own budgets for the new financial year. Time freedom, what does that mean to you? We go into practice for ourselves usually to make more money, to have more freedom, to have more flexibility. But what I see when I speak to so many practice owners is they're not getting any of those. So it's really looking at, you know, what does that time freedom and that flexibility look like for you? Or have you bought yourself a job? And I think that goes hand in hand with the first point. The lifestyle and well-being, it is so important. I hear and see so many practice owners, you know, again, that lifestyle thing, but their practice has taken over. So their lifestyle is basically working around the edges, and some of that is actually what people are missing out on. And, you know, it's really great time to think and reset. How is this all serving yourself? We've got people that are really stressed. We know that stress is not good for our body. And, you know, people that would love to be able to exercise and do more things to look after themselves, but they just simply can't. So you can use this time of the year to really take stock and think about you really achieving those things. And is that, you know, if it's not, let's get that sort of time and that focus into your diaries. The other thing is the client fit and the working relationships. And one of the areas I work a lot with clients is on that ideal client. We talk about who is the ideal client. And an example that I used only last week was, you know, we might have two different clients in the same industry turning over the same amount of money, but one is a lot nicer to work with than the other. And it really becomes, you know, it's linked to that last point, is in those values. And it's not necessarily looking at your ideal client when they're in certain industries. It really comes down to like who you really gel with. And I think there is so much to be said for really working with beautiful clients and a client base that you really, really that appreciate you and value what you do. As we're looking at resetting, you know, and we're going to talk a little bit later in the presentation about, you know, what to let go of. Sometimes it's simply, we also need to look at that clients we need to continue with and some clients we need to let go of. But at the end of the day, it does come back to values and also that vision, trying to find your practice sweet spot. The 5 things that I speak about and the 5 pillars are really about really getting clear on what your version of success is and what your vision is for your practice and your life, because they are so interrelated. Who your ideal clients are, what are the ideal services and how to price those services, what's your tech stack, and then what is your culture? What are you trying to create with your practice? And if you get those 5 things all in sync, the money basically looks after itself. I am such a big believer in that. And, you know, I've had 2 separate businesses and this is exactly the things that I focus on. So really think about what success looks like to you. And so a little mini exercise, you might just want to grab a piece of paper and just write down. You can be writing down as we're talking, but maybe after the presentation and when you've also heard from the other presentations in the summit. What does success look like for you? And this is your version. And, if you've been following a version of success that isn't yours, now's the time to actually change that and reset for the new year. So really reflect on that. I said, one of the elements is boundaries. And when we have boundaries, they really do protect your time, energy, and your sanity. And I know boundaries are really hard to sort of think about because I think we really are people pleasers. We want to help everyone, and whether that be in our practices and also in our personal lives. And that's a great attribute to have because that's what makes us great advisors and great accountants and bookkeepers, because we do care. But that can often get taken advantage of, and so it's really important about those boundaries. But how can we actually get other people to respect those boundaries if we haven't actually defined them ourselves? And I find by having certain boundaries, and I'm going to share some types of boundaries you can have, it actually takes the emotion out of it, and it actually gives people a parameter to work around. So, a couple of things that I've sort of said, about define how and when clients contact you. So I speak to so many people that overwhelm, and the fact they can't get through their work is because they're constantly getting interrupted with clients emailing, texting, phoning, and all of those things. And we actually could get through the whole day and not do a skerrick of client work as such, or chargeable client work. We're adding value while we're talking to our clients, but it's not necessarily stuff that we can charge for. So really defining, those boundaries. So if you don't like text messaging from clients, or you don't like people, messaging on Facebook and things like that, start letting people know what they are for the new financial year. In the interest of, one point of correspondence or one piece of community, we're asking everything to go through emails or to go through, another channel, whatever your preference is. Maybe you need to think about switching off phones or not answering them after a certain time. Like, what does that look like? Because we really can't be on 24/7, and clients aren't paying us enough. That's what I used to say. Clients aren't paying us enough for us to be available 24/7, and thinking about your own families. So really defining how they do that and setting that expectations early and revisiting them, like I said, from the new financial year. Maybe you need to change things up, but when you get on a new client, get a new client in and onboard those, letting them know this is the way we work. This is the way we want information brought into us. Really, that freedom and the flexibility does start with boundaries, and you can teach your clients or reteach them how to treat you. So what are some of those real life examples? So that's that business hours and response time, like you'll respond within 24 hours. So that means you can put your out of office on, or you don't need to respond straight away. If you're doing client work, that's important and that's work. So maybe you're only checking emails a couple of times a day. Whatever actually works for you, and letting clients know that there is a certain period of time that you will contact them in, and not to expect immediate, if that's, because that is quite stressful. Things about using proposals and engagements about the expectation, or resetting those expectations. So when you're engaging, letting your clients know this is what you can expect from us, but also this is what we expect from you. That simple reframing of the arrangement can actually make so much difference. It also obviously can prevent those scope creeps. So in the engagement, what's in, what's out, what they can expect to receive. And if they want more than that, that's a separate engagement. So being really, really clear on this can really also take that emotion out of what you're doing. And the thing that I thought I've put in there is also about that client apathy and last minute requests. And, we had a phrase, and it's a quote, but, a client's lack of planning does not constitute an emergency on our part. And sometimes we have to be a little bit cruel to be kind. And I have done that in the past. Yes, I probably could have fit that request in, but I actually had to teach some lessons because they needed to value my time and also respect other clients. Because if I have something on this afternoon in my diary, that's for a client. And just because they want something done, or they haven't worried about phoning us and saying, all of a sudden I need this for the bank, or I need this for Centrelink, we have to actually stop and, let them feel a little bit of pain, because what will happen is they will then start, it's re-educating. So really think about that is, it's still being respectful. You're not saying you're not going to do it, but maybe it's got to be on your time frame. So really think about that. Maybe it's also a bit of a surge. I talked to a client earlier this morning about potentially putting on some extra charges for those last minute requests. Again, people will start, if it's hitting them in their back pocket, they might actually start to be a bit more organised. Some of the core systems, so we're talking about boundaries are one thing and respecting. And one thing I'll also say about that, the people that get most offended by boundaries, and those boundaries can be work related and also personal related. And I have become a master of that, because that was one thing that probably was causing me a lot of stress. So I've become a lot better at boundary setting. So in addition to boundaries, it's having core systems that actually you can almost like do on autopilot, or your team can be doing on autopilot. So it becomes, really about a habit. So what are some of these core systems that can set you free from your practice? And, really, I believe they're non-negotiables for small and solo firms. So really having a very succinct and I guess proposal for, like, when you're client onboarding and when you're offboarding, and that it's not just when you're taking on a client and the stuff that you do once you've got them. It's also thinking about, that ideal client, like who are the people you're even going to give the opportunity to come and talk to you. So, it's also in that pre-qualification stage. But how can you make that simple, easy to follow, and it's the same system no matter who in your firm is onboarding a client, or whether you're seeing a client and then an admin person's taking over there. How can you make that as easy as possible? Same with the offboarding. What do you need to do? So what systems do you have to have? What can you set up from an automation perspective? It's really, really important. And that client onboarding, talking about the expectations, talking about when you want work brought into you. It's just having that systemization that can really change, that you've not got to be also thinking about things. I think that's also when you've got systems, it's almost like you're able to close some of those tabs in your when we've got a million things happening, it's almost like you have got all these tabs open in your head. When we can actually systemize things and make it flow, and also help others and delegate to others, it makes a lot of difference to that freedom type of thing. Proposals and engagement, so having templates. If there's things that you're doing all the time, and I even speak to a lot of clients, say, it's just easier for me just to type an email out. If you actually sit there and time how long it takes to type an email that's very similar to an email that you may have written yesterday, or you may have written last week or last month or last year, how can we systemize all of those templates? And it allows others, so we could have more things in templates that we can delete if they're not applicable, but it's already there. It also can empower our team to do more of that work for us. They could draft things. So how can you actually have, a really automated thing with not just proposal and engagement templates, but all templates? So the ability for clients to sign, acknowledge, and then going all the way into payment. And I know a lot of small and solo firms think that all of the software and things like that actually are more money, and I can do it more manually. But when you're doing it manually, it's more things for you to check, and it's possibly less things that you're able to delegate. So really thinking about some of these things, how we can streamline, but it's going to potentially cost some money to do that, or a little bit of time to set up systems. So when I was in practice, I did have all of these as templates. We obviously didn't have the software that we have now, but we were able to have a lot of stuff, automated Word documents that could pre-fill. Another thing that I find really, really valuable, and what we did in our practice from about 2008, is we developed a workflow system for our financial statements, for our, compliance work for our business clients. And basically this time every year, we would work out, what are the clients we've got to do work for, and we budgeted for their work to be completed between July and February. And we allocated each of those clients a month. They got a letter to say what month we were going to allocate. We've allocated their work, and then we would send them a checklist prior to that month, letting them know all of the information that we wanted from them. Now that just created so much calm, so much less stress in our practice, because it almost, if you think about it, sometimes it is a feast or a famine. We could have a whole heap of work come in all at once and then we're inundated, we get behind and it's really hard to catch up. Whereas if we actually do this strategically and have a workflow system where we actually schedule that work out, it's that expectation, it's setting the boundaries. And what we used to say to clients, if they didn't bring it in the allocated month, unfortunately, because we've allocated other clients in subsequent months, they basically just got reallocated to February. So all compliance work done by February, allowing us plenty of time for that March BAS, FBT and tax planning. And that's how I set up the practice. And it just took so much stress out of things. So thinking about how you can actually set up a workflow system, that's just an example of the annual compliance, but you could look at that from your regular tax returns not attached to groups, and any of the other workflow you're doing, thinking about what are the pain points, even BAS period, what are the pain points about your BAS period? How can you streamline those and setting up some systems? Another thing that I think everyone needs to be doing right now is looking at their capacity, so their staff capacity. I did this with clients last week. We had a group session for participants of my Better Practice, Better Life program, and over 3 hours we did a whole heap of planning for the new financial year. And we looked at capacity planning for team to make sure that they had enough capacity. Do we need to do more hires? And also, are our team members that we have making sufficient money for what we're paying them and that productivity? So we looked at a whole heap of things in that respect. So I encourage everyone to look at your team capacity and how that flows into your own budgeting for your practice. And then that budgeting, taking that one step further, which also links into your workflow, is how much money or what are your fees each month? And it's not going to be your total fee budget divided by 12 unless everything's on retainer, because we really need to look at what that capacity is. Do we have people going off, on maternity leave, getting married, having holidays, also different times of the year when we know we've got lots of public holidays or over the Christmas break? So having a look at all those things and setting our capacity will make a very markable difference in your firm. And also those communication guidelines, so setting the boundaries, how you want things, and really communicating that with your clients. So that, talking specifically into that workflow system, it allows you to see what's on your plate, what's coming up for the whole 12 months. And you don't need to workflow everything, but the stuff that we know is coming, we can budget for that. And then we can, obviously we also want to leave capacity, because as we know, there will always be extra work that will come in, extra requests, extra ad hoc advisory, etc. So we do want to ensure that we have got also gaps, so we're not just eating up all that capacity, because we know we've got to accommodate those things. And if you find when you're looking at the workflow and you're looking at there are gaps, we then need to decide, do we need more staff or do we need to maybe take some clients out of the equation? Do we simply have too much on our plate? And a good thing there, like thinking about your lodgement percentage right now, where are you at? Where do you think you'll be at next year? Because sometimes you might not have met your target this year because of a circumstance beyond your control, or it might actually be that there is simply too much work. So what are you going to do about that? And really think strategically. If you are feeling stressed, are feeling overwhelmed, what can you do different for the new year? So planning out that work very proactively, and it is a bit of a pain, but the time that you will invest now, you will be so grateful as you're going through the year. And it's just so much nicer that you're actually more organised. It allows you to delegate and defer, confidently, and deliver work on time. So when we implemented that workflow system in 2008, we actually explained to clients one of the reasons why we were doing it. And one of them was to actually improve our turnaround times, because we were quite embarrassed that some of our turnaround times weren't as quick as what we would have liked. So we then set ourselves some of what they were for individual returns, for BASs, and set us to financial statements. So that for us, we really wanted a 4-week turnaround. And so in that first year that we actually brought in that workflow system, we explained to clients it's going to be, we will promise you, provided you bring everything in at the beginning, we have everything that we've asked for, a 6-week turnaround. But our internal goal was 4 weeks. 4 weeks to get everything finished, and then if we could have that annual accounts meeting in that 4-week period, or perhaps have that, within that 6-week period. But that did make us actually deliver work on time, happier clients. We avoided all those people ringing, where's our work, they're chasing it. It just avoided all of that unnecessary time, which is not earning us income. So I want you to think about systems, not about being so rigid, but about actually helping us get that freedom with structure. Second last thing that I'm going to talk about is pricing with confidence. So really thinking about knowing your value. I talked earlier about the salary and what you're worth and what you would be worth on the open market. I think it's really easy to start comparing what other people are charging. And it's really about looking at your own practice, what your own expenses are, what your own expectations are for remuneration, and then working backwards. And if you're looking at that and you're doing those numbers and it's not all adding up, we do need to look at increasing fees. So what we did in our engagements, we actually had an annual increase by CPI. It was automatic CPI every year. And that maybe 2% or 3%, it didn't seem a lot, but it was adding up every single year. Instead of us waiting and not increasing and then increasing every 3 years, that was a bigger jump than actually having small incremental jumps every year. And if you think about it, all of our other costs are going up, so we're really absorbing that. If we're not actually passing that on, we're absorbing those costs, and our profit is declining. So it's really important to look at those numbers. If you haven't increased your fees for some time, or you've got a lot of clients on legacy pricing, it's not sustainable. And if you want to go and sell your practice, or you need extra capacity to put staff on, we need to ensure that profitability is there. So really looking at that. Another thing that we did in 2008 was we created a menu of services, and that's something that I actually produce every year. I have 70 of the most common accounting services that accounting practices offer. I have in there a column of what I was charging back in 2016, which was my last year in practice, and then I've indexed it for normal CPI, but also knowing the different things that need to happen in work. And some of the work that we're doing now didn't actually even exist in there. So I've actually put that pricing guide together, menu of services. That definitely takes the emotion out of pricing. So we actually, our staff can actually do our pricing, our quotations, our proposals, and it takes the emotion. This is the price. And if clients don't like that, they can go somewhere else. So really it's about consistency. If you have got clients on legacy pricing that you do want to increase, you can do it really empathetically and say, I would actually be saying to those clients, this is what our standard fee is, but this is the discount that I'm offering. And the reason why we're doing that is we're letting them know that they are getting a discount. Quite often they don't even know. But if they refer clients, they need to understand that the new clients coming in will actually now be subject to our menu of services. If you use the code TheFirm10, that will actually give you a 10% discount on that pricing guide, and there's a QR code to be able to have a look and see what that pricing guide's all about. The final thing is about the power of saying no and really making space for what matters. So really every no is a yes to something better. It's a really hard skill. As I said, we are people pleasers, but it's really, really imperative for us to have that practice that's not going to result in us being burnt out, stressed, and also just being, like not enjoying what we're doing, because, being in practice and doing the work that we do can be so, so much fun, so rewarding and so profitable. But it's really about us really, working out what is not serving us. So, saying no, I'm not going to accept scope creep. I'm not going to accept write-offs. I'm not going to accept clients that actually aren't aligned with me or my values, or are asking me to do something that's actually I don't want to do, or that sort of thing, putting me in a compromising position. So it's also about de-risking your practice and saying no to things that zap your energy. Now again, this is practice and also a life one. So it's once you start using these muscles and getting this skill, it makes you feel so empowered, and then it becomes easier and easier, and I can promise you that is the case. So a little exercise for you to do here is what's one task a client or habit that you need to release in order for you to grow and to have a practice that you love. And that's my last slide. So, it's a result about all of these things. It's having sustainable systems. It's having clients that you absolutely love working with, that are aligned to your values and that appreciate everything that you do and that are prepared to pay you for you to be able to make a decent living as well and have that build that family wealth. So whether that's a space to grow your practice if you do want to scale, or perhaps you want to slow down and scale down, realistically it's about doing life on your terms, one that gives you more joy, more satisfaction, more ease and more life. So we want you to be enjoying your life outside your practice. So your next steps: review your version of success and your vision. Choose one boundary that you're going to reinforce or enforce in the new financial year. Audit your systems, come up with some new ones perhaps from the things that I've talked about today, and also your practice numbers. The numbers do not lie, they are really eye-opening, and they will also help you set that course for the new year, because it will actually change your perspective and then that focus. Update your pricing and choose one thing to say no to this week. So how I can help you, as I said, use the firm 10 for, I'll go through, yes, I have a community called the Balanced Firm, which is a lovely community of small and solo accounting practice owners. I have my signature program is the Better Practice, Better Life program. It's a 12-month program. It has 12 pillars. It has the 5 that I talked about vision, clients, services, technology, culture, and then we really deep dive into the numbers, the KPIs that so many of you have not been taught, because chances are the practices that you've come from have really held their numbers close to their chest. So it's the things that you don't know, and it's that you don't know what you don't know. So all of my templates are all in there, and we have monthly calls in that. So support for 12 months to help you have that better practice, better life. So use that code and you will get 10% off that program. Doors are now open and they only open twice a year. So end of financial year, new financial year, and then the new calendar year. I also have coaching, one-on-one coaching and VIP days. There's no 10% discount off those, but there is a 10% discount off my pricing guide, which I've already mentioned. So look, wishing you all a wonderful end of financial year countdown, and I really hope that the information that I've shared today helps you actually think about your practice, perhaps in a different way as you reflect and refocus on the year ahead. But good luck everyone, and here's to a fun, rewarding and profitable 25-26. Thanks for having me, Trent.
Hey, Amanda, that was awesome. Thank you so much. Loved everything. Always super practical, great tips. I'm sure everyone's learned stacks out of that. That was fantastic. Awesome. Alrighty, we're going to keep this ship moving. We are towards the back end of the day. We only have a few sessions left. So at this point at 2 p.m, we have 2 sessions I'm going to run you through right now. That is Before You Grow, Building the Firm That Actually Deserves to Scale. That is with Amy Holdsworth. That's going to be fantastic. Amy is from Clarity Street. She does amazing work helping firms implement the right tech stack. So before you decide how you do that, she wants to run you through all the things you need to worry about before you start getting too ahead of yourself. And then we're also now then joined by Mark Holden. So adding advisory, keeping compliance, how firms are expanding their value. If you've never heard Mark speak before, he is amazing. I highly recommend you check out that session if you are interested in adding advisory to your service mix. It's going to be super practical steps, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. So I'm going to hand over to both Amy and Mark starting at 2 p.m. Again, if you're enjoying yourself, tag us on LinkedIn, share your best moments, share it with a colleague, and check out the recordings once they become available. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.